My girlfriend is a doctor. A lady told her this.
If vaccines are so good, why aren't they mentioned in the Bible? Oh Lord, the devil is tempting us with vaccines again.
G'day folks, this is 𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐿, bringing you multiple answers to very specific questions. Curious to see how people answer these questions? Then subscribe to the channel. Being a doctor is hard enough of a job. Imagine encountering people who would rather listen to an internet conspiracy theory rather than someone who's studied the field for many years. Today, Reddit's question is, Doctors of Reddit, what was your worst encounter with an anti-vaxxer? Well then, let's get answering. It would depend on your specialty as a doc. I'm a pediatric nurse, and I see anti-vaxxers a couple of times a week. My not-so-favorite one was a 1-week-old perfect little baby. He was born at home to a lay midwife, i.e. not a nurse, and never got his vitamin K or hep shot that all newborns get. So this baby ended up in the PICU for months because he had 2 brain bleeds. Vitamin K is a f***ing vitamin that helps baby blood to clot so they don't bleed out in their brain. No idea if the kid will ever grow up neurologically intact or not. Well, I heard that it was fear of giving kids leukemia that stops these people from getting vitamin K. Oh, then I guess we should just avoid all the grapes or all the blueberries or all the kiwis or you know what? You get the point. The most memorable encounter I had was while I was on a plane and the person next to me finds out that I'm a doctor, which leads to all sorts of questions. She asked me about what I thought about vaccines as she has not vaccinated her children and was more on the herbal supplements, naturopathic side of medicine. It took me about 30 minutes to respectfully talk about the history of vaccines and their effectiveness, how they require billions in research for not just the benefits but the risks as well, and how we don't get kickbacks from Big Pharma for encouraging their use, and how the autism connection was a hoax that required even more money and research to prove that there was no connection. Also talked about failed vaccines that didn't end up showing benefits or too much risks, as well as those for special cases, yellow fever and rabies, and therefore are not standard of care. I talked about how we have to see patient by patient who would benefit from vaccines and who would be placed in undue harm. Also talked about my friend who had vaccine-preventable meningitis as a kid that left her scarred with multiple medical problems that ended up needing a kidney transplant. She was actually pretty receptive and respectful to the debate and ended up asking me how she could start having her kids vaccinated, just going to the pediatrician. And if she can do an alternate schedule, likely no need, but better than nothing. Hopefully she ended up doing that. I don't think that conversation would have been successful if 1. This was a 20-minute patient checkup, standard, where I need to see 5 other patients and deal with 3 to 5 other issues while she was in the clinic. 2. She wasn't returning the respect I was giving her. I think a lot of the problem is not giving time to voice concern and understanding where they're coming from, as well as environment that led them to such positions. I guess this encounter wasn't that bad. You acted in a professional manner. No we're used in this debate. I see this as an absolute win. My niece. It drives me absolutely insane. I don't prescribe medications, so I don't often deal with anti-vaxxers. However, my niece is one of those homeopathic nuts who think vaccinations weaken the immune system. I've explained how the different vaccinations are made, how they are researched and tracked. She still doesn't buy it. None of her 3 kids are vaccinated. The worst thing is that she is a medical social worker who could potentially influence patients. Hey, when worse comes to worse and measles finally make their way to her kids, she'll figure out that homeopathic remedies isn't always the answer. My dad is a retired doctor. He's 88 years old, but vaccinations were done to kids through schools when he was young, in late 1930s Britain. And like today, the schools asked the parents for permission. His devout Baptist parents did not give permission for some nonsensical religious reason. My dad, even as a young boy, knew the importance of vaccinations and simply joined the line of kids who were being vaccinated. The school nurse knew my dad did not have permission and he had joined the line of his own accord. She vaccinated him anyways, without saying a word. Smart kid, brave nurse. His parents might have yelled at him for that, but hey, he might have outlived the other kids to tell the tale. The worst ones are the ones that don't engage at all. They're fast and over with and generally easy, but you know there's no chance of any improvement in their outlook. My most memorable one was a night shift last year in Perth with a couple that was refusing the neonatal screening test, a genetic screen for major diseases like cystic fibrosis. I came on shift at 10 p.m. and got asked to see them. We started chatting, and their logic was that they had 2 healthy children who didn't have anything flagged on their NST, so it's impossible for them to have a 3rd child with genetic issues. I guess it was a really poor understanding of genetics that drove this one. I busted out some Mendel and Punnett squares, and they seemed to come around. The more comfortable they were with me, the more questionable ideas came out. There was the usual, vaccines cause autism, which Mom was worried about because she was an early childhood worker who was seeing firsthand the increase in autism cases in recent years, mainly because we're getting better at diagnosing earlier and much better awareness of early symptoms among parents. She was suggesting a delayed schedule of vaccinations, which was reasonable based on her particular fears. I didn't fight too hard on this one since she was vaccinating eventually. Then I noticed that they had declined the vitamin K shot at birth. Vitamin K is given as an intramuscular injection to combat vitamin K deficiency, very common to newborns. The lack of vitamin K at birth can lead to the equivalent of overdosing of warfarin. The baby bleeds a lot. The most risky areas for this to happen is the brain and the bones of the skull, leading to either brain damage or death due to blood loss. Vitamin K doesn't get transferred by breastfeeding, and the oral supplement is not reliable at all. So an IM injection is the best way to deliver this to babies. A lot of parents have objections to this. I had come across many who just didn't want to have their baby get a needle as their first experience on Earth. Others believed a vague report from the 1990s that suggested vitamin K causes cancer. This couple blindsided me with their explanation for why they didn't want this injection. In their research, they had come across the fact that vitamin K-gated channels in cells regulate cell growth. They extrapolated from this information that vitamin K levels controlled rate of growth for the entire human organism. They pointed out to me that if humans kept growing at the rate they did in the womb, after being born, they would be 6 feet tall by the time they turned 1 year old. Hence, the vitamin K deficiency at birth was a physiological mechanism to slow growth. I was very surprised by this. I told them that I've never come across a 6 foot tall 1 year old, but that I would go away and research their concerns and return to them later if they were still awake, or swing by in the morning. I couldn't find any solid evidence linking vitamin K to behemoth babies, and talked it through with them the next morning. In the end, they agreed to the NST. We're still very hesitant regarding vaccines, and I can't remember where we landed on vitamin K. It was a crazy conversation, but both Mom and Dad were acting out of genuine concern for their child. They weren't trying to score points against Big Pharma. They wanted to make sure that they protected their children from any threats. The ones that accuse me of being a shill are hilarious though. We have so much evidence of vaccines being effective and being the single greatest advancement in medicine ever. And I've been recommending them for years, for free. With my amount of debt, sign me up. I'll keep recommending them but get paid? Deal! That's mostly sarcasm. We're all hyper-vigilant about sources of biases when practicing medicine. I'm surprised you didn't resort to hiring a 6-foot-tall man, dress him up as a baby, and presented him as the 1-year-old vitamin K-laced child. I might have done that for the laugh. Not so funny when they take your license though. The only real anti-vaxxer I've ever met was a beautiful, though crazy and ultra-religious, girl back when I had just finished medical school. We went out once. Then, out of the blue, she starts telling me how I was brainwashed by all of those years in the medical field and the big pharma companies. No matter how much I tried to explain where she could find real data about vaccines and trustworthy information, she just kept going with her crazy speech. At the end, I just told her to keep her future children away from my future children. Needless to say, there was no second date. Oh hey, I give you point for that smooth way of telling her that you two won't be seeing each other again. I bet you didn't have a hard time finding another date. Maybe next time look for the one who isn't too crazy? Will be a doctor in May. I encounter anti-vaxxers very frequently. I personally don't care much when adults are refusing for themselves, even though I judge them harshly for it. But I absolutely hate when parents refuse for their children. Worst offenders were parents who refused a vitamin K shot, not even a vaccine, for their newborn, which would put the baby at risk for cerebral hemorrhage. Most frustrating are parents that refuse the HPV vaccine for their daughters and sons, not because of health concerns, but because they think it'll turn them into promiscuous sluts when they get older, as opposed to just being a safe and effective way to prevent cervical cancer. For real, vitamin K shots are very important. And so HPV vaccines can turn women and men promiscuous because they prevent genital warts, which in turn encourages them to have more sex. This is almost as bad as the time when the more conservative folks used to say that condoms were the cause of teenage pregnancy. My girlfriend is a doctor. A lady told her this:
If vaccines are so good, why aren't they mentioned in the Bible? Oh Lord, the devil is tempting us with vaccines again. Tempting us with long, healthy life away from preventable diseases. Away from me, devil. Away from me.
Not a doctor, but I have Asperger's, autism, and my encounter was with another girl in my freshman year of college. She started going off on how vaccines cause autism and how horrible that is. So I started arguing back against her. It was a very heated 30 minutes. A lot of other students saw it, but I was so angry I didn't notice others watching, and it spread like wildfire. I'm a junior now, and everyone who was there freshman year remembers it. But for once in my life, they sided with me. That must have been a very good day then. Let me get real here for a second. They're basically saying that they'd rather have their kids suffer from measles, polio, or tetanus than have a kid with autism. I have friends with autism, and let me tell you, they are the finest people I know. So lay off them, lady. Do not make me sneeze at your direction. Cause, let's face it, you're probably not vaccinated. I got a new job and needed to get a flu shot before I left for training. I was asking around at my then job about where to go get one, as I just used urgent care when I was living in that state, and someone asked what I needed a doctor for. I said, "Oh, I just need to get a flu shot." And he stopped, looked me in the eye, and in all seriousness said,
You shouldn't do that. You could get autism.
I'm 25 years old. You know what would have been funny? If maybe after getting the flu shot, You talk to him while you do these little ticks and twitches and, we just see where it goes. That's all for today, folks. We at 𝐻𝒐𝐻Reddit work really hard to post a video every day, so make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notifications of our posts. See you on the next one.